Hello, Crunch. Thank you so much for being here, being part of the summit.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and to share with your audience.
Yes, I'm really excited to talk with you about this topic. We're going to go into how to create a writing routine that works for you and how to actually carve out time to write. But first, I'll just give the audience a little sense of you in case they haven't been fortunate enough to meet you yet. Just tell them a little bit more about you. So Crunch is a conversion copywriter and content creator for change makers and entrepreneurs who want to make an impact. A firm believer that we need more diversity, equity, and inclusion in our communities, Crunch helps like-minded business owners harness the power of words to get their message heard by more than just their 213 Instagram followers and create a bigger impact in the world. Crunch's superpower is writing snazzy blogs and articles and turning the monologues you've been doing on Facebook or Instagram Live into a summoning spell that magically conjures up your ideal clients and appeases the Google gods. I just love that so much. I love the work you do, and you are just so talented and really brilliant at it. But I'm really looking forward to talking with you as someone who you do have a busy schedule, you have this business, you travel the world. Like, I just think you're the perfect expert to really talk us through blocking out that time to write consistently. And I love when we were emailing back and forth a little bit before the summit, I loved what you said about creating a writing routine that works for you. I think for so many of us, we have this idea in our head, there's this perfect one size fits all, writing routine that we just maybe don't have the answer. But I love what you were saying in our emails about finding what works for you. I think that's so important. So I'm just really excited to dive into this with you.
Yeah, super excited to share about it.
Yeah. So maybe we could start off, I guess, just by kind of talking about if someone is listening right now and they're I really want to write my book, or maybe even smaller, I want to write a blog, I want to start blog posts, but I just really have a hard time, blocking out time to write consistently, having a consistent writing routine. Maybe we can start off by just do you have a starting point, a place that you think is great for people to start when they are trying to create a writing routine that works for them?
So I personally love starting by creating time blocks in my calendar. I think this is a very common productivity tip that productivity coaches talk about all the time. But time blocking is a very effective tool to kind of make sure that you're creating time for the important things that you need to be doing in your business or writing your book, whether it's planning or editing or actually just sitting down to write. So I find that things for me, especially personally, because I'm a digital nomad, I travel all the time, and I have to kind of fit my business and my writing and all of the client work that I'm doing around travel schedules, like catching a flight or plane or ferry, whatever it is. So it is kind of really important for me to have those time blocks marked out on my calendar. So at the start of the week or on Sunday evening, I kind of sit down and mark out the times around the fixed events in my calendar, so to speak. So if I have a flight on Thursday morning, I'm obviously not going to be working then. So I'm going to have to, block off time in the evening or something to work on my business or work on client work. So I mark off the blocks on my calendar and I designate it for a specific task, whether it's client work during this time, writing marketing posts for social media, or working on a blog post for my own business, or reaching out to potential clients, or whatever it is that I have to do. I have to put it on my calendar in a specific block. And when the time comes, I think it's really important to treat it as something really important that you're not gonna just give up at the last minute. Because if you had a client call at that time, you wouldn't just flake and decide, no, I think I'm going to go out for ice cream instead, or no, I think I'm going to go do the laundry instead. So you would treat it as of utmost importance. And I think that's the key to actually, sticking to your writing routine, is to treat it as important as a client call. And you are the client, right? In this case, you're carving out time for yourself to work on your book, to write, to plan, to edit, whatever it is you're doing. And I like to recommend 1 to 3 hour blocks with lots of breaks in between, because I don't think we can do that much focused productive time like all at once. So I like
Mhm.
to, get in a little break here and there to stretch, to have a 5-minute walk out in the garden if it's possible, or, just to switch your brain off for a minute and come back with clear eyes. So I think time blocking is a great place to start just
Mhm.
by, putting these blocks on your calendar, so and making sure that you stick to them when the time comes around is a great place to start when you're like, well, how do I start writing a book?
Yeah. I love this tip. And I think that some people, sometimes we might like resist this. Sometimes when it comes to like something like writing or creativity or, like writing our book, or where we feel like, oh, well, maybe I want to just wait for inspiration to strike, or, I think sometimes we have these like myths in our mind around writing, but I just think what you're saying is so true. Like having that time on your calendar and treating it like it is a client call. That's like such a great way of framing it is, okay, you wouldn't flake on that. Like, so don't flake on yourself. Like you're the client. I just think that's so true, because then when you do sit down in that designated time block, there's nothing else you're supposed to be doing. Like you're not like, oh, well, I could be writing now, or I could be doing XYZ. It's like you've designated this time on your calendar for your writing. So your brain has more permission that this is what I'm supposed to be doing now. Because I think for a lot of us, we sometimes, if we have a creative project, especially if it's maybe related to our business, but more of like a long-term project, like writing a book that's not, having that instant gratification of posting on social media, or like something that is more immediately revenue generating, we sometimes feel almost guilty for working on it, or like, oh, maybe I should be doing XYZ instead. So do you think time blocking kind of helps with that mindset wise too, of like setting aside that time for maybe bigger projects that are more, I'm thinking about that metric of like urgent versus important. Like maybe they're more important, even if they're not super urgent.
Yeah, definitely. um, I think it definitely helps to, have that mindset. Like you said, once you've marked it off in your calendar, it's like, this is time to write my book. You
Mhm.
sit down and you're like, okay, I've put it on my calendar. It kind of feels a little bit like an accountability check, like it's on my calendar, I gotta do it,
Yeah.
So you just kind of go in and, even if like inspiration doesn't strike you,
Mhm.
and I think that's such a scam, by the way. You get inspiration by writing, not just waiting for inspiration to strike you.
Yes.
um, so yeah, just sitting down and like starting with whatever it is that you have, like whether you don't feel super inspired and you just start writing anyways. I think just getting into that habit of like, this is marked out on my calendar. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do the thing. And even if it doesn't feel great right now, it
Mhm.
will in the future as you keep doing it, as you keep building that muscle of, you know, showing up and doing the work every single time that you've told yourself you're going to do the work.
I love that. I love your analogy of like you're building this muscle. And it makes me think too, I think there's a lot of talk around writing about having like word count goals for certain projects, or like, I want to write this number of words per day, which I think can be helpful for some people. But I'm also similar to you. Like, I really like having a more of a time metric, like a time block, because I just think it gives us more grace, where there are some days where like inspiration is flowing and the words are flowing, and there are other days where it's a little bit slower and we're just kind of sitting, and maybe our mind, things are germinating more. And I think it's like both days are successful if you sit down for the amount of time that you set out to be focused on that task of writing, and you wrote 50 words, but you were really like thinking about it, or you wrote like 500 words. Like, it's kind of like either one, they're both successes, because you did that, the time you showed up for the time that you said you were going to. So I just think it's a really nice kind of like long-term sort of nurturing habit to set up, is focusing on the time, and just like trusting that over time, like the words will build and the habit will be created.
Yes, that's definitely true.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's get into like some more. So that is one like really great habit of time blocking. I love how you mentioned like building in those breaks too. I think is so important. What's something else that you use with your writing routine that you think is like helpful or useful that other people could maybe think about too?
So this is something that I do when I need to work on my business rather than in my business. Is
Mm,
I change my environment. So after I've blocked it out on my calendar, and I need to, for me it's really hard to switch off client work and go into working on my own business, like doing the marketing or outreach or planning for an event that I'm hosting in the future or something like that. So I like to change my environment. And I think this is a very effective, simple kind of trick that you can, switch your brain into doing something different than you're usually doing. So if you always sit down at your desk to write client emails or to write whatever, to do whatever it is that you do in your business, the next time you sit down and you want to write your book at the same desk, your brain will be like, no, but let me check my email. Oh, but let me respond to these, Instagram comments, because, that's also productive work. And that's great. But when you have to write a book, maybe you want to actually focus on writing a book. So changing your environment is an easy way to just kind of kick your brain out of work mode and into this other mode where you're writing your book. So some things that you can think about when it comes to changing your environment, you can think about changing your physical location. So maybe if you're working in your home office, you might switch to working at your kitchen desk or kitchen table, or you might go to a cafe or a co-working space where you just, that space is limited for you to work on this particular project that you're trying to, accomplish. Another thing that could be helpful, especially if you're thinking about writing a book, is to change your writing tools, right? So if you're always used to writing on your computer, what about trying to write something on pen and paper, like with pen and paper? I mean, that's how we all started off writing, but not many people do that anymore. So just, like having to use your hand and actually write words on paper can, kickstart your brain into thinking in other creative ways that you wouldn't ordinarily get from typing at a computer, for example. I guess maybe you can even think about changing the kind of chair you sit on, whether it's like a straight back chair or, just to like give your body a different sensation so that it knows that this is not the time that I'm usually doing the thing that I'm usually doing, just to kind of get out of your usual state and switch gears in your brain to, tell it to, okay, now it's time to focus on this other thing. And once you like do that a couple of times, your brain kind of like just gets into the habit of knowing that, oh, once I go to a cafe, I'm going to work on the book. Like I'm not going to answer emails. I'm not going to, comment on social media to build my business. I'm going to focus on the book. And, or even in like switching rooms in your home. Like once I'm not in the home office and I'm working on this thing, it's for this other project. It's not the usual thing that I'm doing. So I think that can be a very helpful, like, or powerful technique to use. That's really quite simple. Like, it doesn't take a lot to change your environment, even quite minimally, to just put your brain in a different state of mind.
I love that so much. And you're so right. It's so simple. And I think so many of us, we just don't even think about it. We have our computer, like our normal desk where we work, and we don't even think about, like you're saying, just moving to the kitchen table or like going outside or going to a cafe. And I could not agree more. It's so powerful. And I love what you're talking about with sort of like cueing your brain for, like training your brain kind of to associate a certain place with different tasks, I think. And that's also, I think about too, when I leave my desk, if I go write somewhere else, I mean, I always wish I were neater, but my desk just gets very messy and cluttered, but it feels like I'm physically kind of leaving some of those, to-dos, or that, I'm kind of like leaving that clutter behind when I go to a cafe or I go outside. So I think that's also really nice too. Like if there are things about your home office that remind you of other tasks you should be doing or kind of add stress, it's like you're able to physically remove yourself from that location and think about some place that would be, kind of enjoyable for you. Like I love the idea of going to your favorite cafe, getting like delicious drink and kind of making it into this little treat for yourself. I know there are lots of writers that will do writing retreats where they'll go away for like a weekend or something. But I think for some of us that can seem just not as doable. So it's almost like you're proposing like a little mini writing retreat, just going to a cafe for a few hours. I think that's such a great idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, writing retreats might be a great option for people who have, the funds and the availability to just take days off their schedule and go to a resort in, I don't know, the Bahamas and write for a week
beautiful.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think for a lot of us, that's not possible. So we have to find ways to create that environment that the writing retreat would offer you, just in our own cities or in our own towns, or, just around us.
Yeah.
Go to your friend's place, go to your, I don't know, your somewhere else that's available. It doesn't need to be fancy or expensive or dramatically different. It just has to be different from what you're used to.
Yeah, it's so, so true. And I love that idea too. I think we've all had that experience of being on vacation, you're somewhere new, and you just kind of notice more things. I naturally always just like feel more inspired, even if I'm just in a city that's very similar to my own city, but it's like just a different place. So I think you're really tapping into some of those same things, like just going across town, going to your friend's house. That's such a great idea, just like something different. And I also love how you brought up the idea of trying to write in a different mode, like doing pen and paper. I have personally had some clients who were super blocked and just were like having a hard time making progress on their books. And that was such a just lightning bolt for them of just switching to going to pen and paper made all the difference with their creative processing. That's also just a great little nugget, a great little tip to try out. Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you was, kind of about, and this relates to this idea of creating a writing retreat for yourself. Like, are there ways that you, I guess, kind of keep it fun, keep it fresh, like build in that motivation? So especially if someone is tackling a big project like writing a book, I always compare it to running a marathon. Like it's a long endeavor, and you don't get that automatic high that we get from like posting on social media where we're immediately getting feedback and likes and those like dopamine hits. So do you have any advice for kind of keeping our motivation up, and create a writing routine that feels, sort of, dare I say, even like a little bit fun for us as we're going about this process?
Yeah, definitely fun and enjoyment is an important part of creating a routine that's sustainable, because if it's not fun and you're not enjoying it, it feels like torture every week or every day that you're doing it. You're never going to want to do it, even if you have all the time blocks and you change the environment. You're just like, oh, this feels like pain, so I like to celebrate and reward myself, and I highly encourage you to do that as well. So at the end of like a big time block that I am, so for example, every Friday mornings, I take Friday mornings off to go do my stuff in my business, for my business, like marketing stuff or like planning thing or writing content for my personal business to promote it on social media, whatever it is. And it's not something I super enjoy doing. I much prefer working on client work. So at the end of it, like I usually go to a cafe, and then at the end of it, I treat myself to a really nice breakfast, just as like an inbuilt treat, so that I know that at the end of this working hour, I will have a nice breakfast to look forward to, and really nice coffee, and it's a nice environment. So it just feels like a very enjoyable process and session. So I look forward to it. Like, oh, Friday's my CEO time, and I'm gonna go to a cafe, get a nice brunch, get nice coffee, and it hypes me up, even if I don't super enjoy like writing content for my website, for example. Yeah, and after each session, you can reward yourself, or you can, celebrate little milestones along the way, whether it's you've completed writing one chapter, or you've completed writing 3 pages, whatever it is that you set as your milestone. As long as you have these inbuilt rewards, I think it will give you more motivation to show up and do the work on a regular basis, rather than like, oh, I will celebrate after my entire book is written, because that's going to be a long time, right? So you might, give yourself small treats at the end of each writing session, and then maybe a little bigger treat at the end of a month, or end of a chapter, or end of a, I don't know, plot idea, whatever. I don't know, like find those milestones in whatever you're writing in your book, and make sure that those things are, you're giving yourself room to enjoy those mini milestones along the way before you finish your book. So, and of course, once you finish your book, like, do treat yourself, like, and go all out, because you've accomplished something that not very many people do in their lifetimes. So yeah, definitely take the time to enjoy that and enjoy the process. Find some sort of joy, happiness, fun in it, in the writing process, even if it's not the actual writing. I know lots of people don't enjoy writing, but just finding ways to treat yourself, whether it's a fancy brunch or like a hike in the woods, or going to the opera if that's your cup of tea. Just having something as external motivation can be really helpful to get those big projects done.
I love that so much. And I feel like what comes up for me too, as you're describing this, is like, I think you're really building in a practice of like celebrating the whole journey. Where so like you're saying, so many of us, we have in our minds like, oh, well, I'll celebrate once I finish. I'll celebrate once I finish this huge, milestone of writing my whole book. And it's like, no wonder so many people quit halfway through. Like, it's no wonder so many of us lose motivation and I just think it's so, so important to really, build in that celebration throughout the whole process, because that's really where the magic happens. Like, that's where I just feel like your power kind of lies, is like in those weekly, those daily, those monthly like habits. And I love that so much too, because I feel like you're building in something like with your weekly brunch is something that you genuinely look forward to. And so like over time, you are going to kind of look forward to those writing sessions, even if maybe like at first they weren't your favorite, or even if they are a little bit of a struggle. So I just think that's such a great tip, and I could not agree more. I think it's so, so important with like keeping our motivation going for the long haul, because it really is, it's such a long journey. And so it's about like really having that routine that sustains you. So such good tips. Thank you so much. I wish that we lived closer together and we could like meet for brunch together sometime. Maybe one day we'll be able to. That would be so
one day.
fun. Yeah. Well, you have a wonderful special offer for all of our summit attendees. So I wanted to make sure to give you time to tell us a little bit about that, and how attendees can take advantage of this really generous offer that you're giving us.
So I would like to offer everybody 30% off Simplify Content Planning, which is my content planning framework that you can do it yourself. You can, it takes about 45 minutes for you to kind of get 3 to 6 months of your content for your business planned out and ready to go, so that you never have to sit in front of a computer and go like, what do I post on social media today? Or what do I write for my blog today? So this is a framework that I've created, and I've used it with lots of entrepreneurs, and they've told me that it works really well for them to have this plan and not have to worry about what to post. And I'd love to offer a 30% discount using the code EASY30 on my website. You can find it on ranjani.com/simplify. Just simply key in the code at checkout, and the discount will be automatically applied. And I hope it is useful for your listeners and watchers.
What an amazing offer. Thank you so much. That sounds like so incredible to get it all planned out. And what a great offer. I will definitely include the links and the discount code. So if anybody's listening and like you miss it, just make sure you go. It'll be in the email that's sent out about this talk. Just thank you so much, Crunch. And also before I let you go, if you can just share the best ways for people to find you, follow you, like connect with you if they want more of you. I love your content. Like I love reading your stories, seeing your travel photos. So I definitely recommend people follow you. Where are the best places for people to connect?
I'm on Instagram at CrunchTeamy, on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, and I post content on all 3 of the platforms. You can also sign up for my email newsletter and get like a bi-monthly digest kind of thing delivered to your inbox. And of course, if you need additional content support, or you want to see what, working with somebody who can write your content for you so that you don't have to worry about it looks like, you can hop on a free discovery call with me. That's available over on my website as well, crunchranjani.com. And I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you wonderful folks.
Yes. If someone's listening to this and they're like, man, I wish I could just hand off my content to someone while I'm working on my book. That's like the perfect opportunity working with you. I love it, Crunch. Well, thank you so much for sharing your gems. I feel like you've given us so many little nuggets to start implementing right away and see how it feels in our writing routine. So thank you so much for being part of the summit.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an honor and a pleasure.